goes live in 2 minutes. Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Well, there are slow news days, and then there are news days where you feel so overwhelmed you don't know which way to look. No good news. I mean, there's no good news. I must admit, I looked. If you know of any good news, feel free. I suppose a few perps caught here and there in cases that would have been getting a lot more attention had not the new Boston massacre occurred. Let me start with what yesterday I spoke somewhat about prior to the actual fact, and that was the inability of the Senate of the United States to pass a watered-down, milquetoasty background check bill that, in fact, would have closed a loophole that 90+% of Americans want closed. Also, since we'll be dealing somewhat in numbers, okay, so you have over 90% of people in the United States wanting something. You have a Senate of the United States, through its own absurd rules that could be changed, deciding that now any vote, essentially, requires not a majority to pass, but instead needs 60 votes. So you had a 60-vote hurdle. If you had simply a simple majority hurdle, which used to work for the United States Senate for hundreds of years, of course this bill would have passed. To repeat, you have 90% of the people of the country saying they want such a measure, and yesterday you saw 90% of the Republican senators voting against it. And I'm not sure who the author is, someone in the New Yorker put it this way. It wasn't just that a minority of the Senate, representing a minority of Americans, was able to vote down legislation that had been so watered down as to make it utterly unobjectionable. It wasn't just that the Republican-controlled House would never have passed the bill if it had gotten it. It was watching the whole process, realizing again so vividly, and on an issue that matters so much, that the people who make the laws for 300 million Americans are so often cowards or fools or both. I think, well, we have a caller just as well. Go ahead, caller.
Yes, I called there Monday. I wanted to make something clear. I wasn't condoning that bombing at all. I was just saying it didn't come out right that we go over in Afghanistan and Iraq and we use these drones and we've killed hundreds of thousands of people, women, children, men, and that's okay, but if something happens in our country, now it might be domestic and not international terrorism, we get all upset about it. But we do the same damn thing, and I don't condone this action at all. I think it's terrible, but that was what I was trying to say.
Okay.
Clear it up.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, as I recall, it didn't come out quite right. No, but, to that point, it's always different when it happens to you. What leaped into my head as I said that just now was the senator from Ohio, this Portman, who steadfastly stood against gay marriage until his son turned out to be gay. And he wanted his son to enjoy all of the institutions and what else does marriage give you? Heartache. I don't. And all the perks that come with being a married person. He couldn't. It didn't even process in his head until it came right into his own home. That bespeaks a lack of empathy. That bespeaks a sort of self-centeredness, obviously. That bespeaks a sense that somehow I, me, us, what I recognize as us, are special. It's a tribal thing. I suspect it's human nature, whatever. It used to freak me out when I first got into the news business that, let's say, an airplane crashed somewhere. This is in the old days when there was a wire that would go, tick, 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 and the wires would be making noise and the news would come and you'd rip them off, rip and read, and you'd read it and blah, 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 blah. And I was always stunned at how a plane crash didn't mean anything unless there was an American killed. So you could there was this plane crash in Asia, 300 people died. And it never meant anything. It wasn't like newsworthy for an American audience until an American died. Then you start paying attention to it. It's that kind of thinking. If it's someone from our team. I myself don't generally do that. But I think I'm probably due on some occasions. It's sort of what I was railing about, I think, on Tuesday. It's driving me crazy, all these stories about how, Not in Boston, because we people in Boston are different. You know, we run to trouble. We don't run away from trouble. I was saying, come on. What does that mean? I saw actually someone in Boston finally wrote something that was saying exactly. He was saying, stop calling us flinty. And he said, what does that mean? I mean, Boston showed what Boston is. What is that? It implies that in Topeka, it wouldn't have happened. That people wouldn't have run toward to help. I guess these are the things we tell ourselves to make ourselves feel better. I guess if I just stop taking it quite so literally and understand that this is the way humans have to start healing or dealing with a situation after something horrific, this sense that, I, my town, my city, my group is special. And what they fail to do and never see is that seems to suggest that everybody else isn't. It's part of why, and I've talked about this in terms of even Pittsburgh, people who want to pump up Pittsburgh, always saying Pittsburghers are the friendliest people in the world. Why, you ask a Pittsburgher for directions and man, they'll drive you right there. Now that has happened. I've done it for some people. I've been on both ends of that one. And guess what? I've been on both ends of that one outside of Pittsburgh. People are friendly. My brother maintains that nobody is friendlier than people from Green Bay. He knows it. He's so sure of it. Because he has pride in where he comes from. And then he gets into this sort of romanticization of what the people from here are all about. People are people. People are people. All over the world. And that's, I think, what the caller, who didn't quite say it right on Monday, tried to say today. People are people, for God's sake. Anyway, we digress. People are people, and as I have often said, they are a great disappointment. often. And when I say that, I'm thinking of the Senate. And it is true that if the Senate had managed, it wouldn't have made a damn bit of difference. We would have felt victorious for a second. Then it would have gone over to Boehner's territory, and it would have been destroyed. It never would have made it. There wasn't going to be a bill. But I have to say, and I don't know if you had the opportunity to see all of what the president said after the vote, because what he said was said through clenched teeth. And I got a sense of such resolve. It's like, okay, fine and dandy. All right. You win the first battle. Come to think of it, you won the first, second, third, fourth, 100 million battles, all the way back to who knows where. We ain't quitting. And I get this sense, hey, time's on our side. Just as it usually is on the side of reason. 90% of the American people want something, and it can't get through the legislature? Then something's really wrong. Really wrong. So let the NRA pop its champagne corks. Ultimately, truly, and I know this as much as I know the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. Ultimately, the NRA and those who do its bidding will be judged with extraordinary harshness by history. People will read about us and this gun fetishism, and they'll think, what was wrong with those people? What was wrong with them? When the president spoke after he was surrounded by surrounded by all people who had been affected by gun violence, some of the parents from Newtown, and Gabby Giffords was there. And Gabby Giffords wrote a piece afterwards that the New York Times printed today. And, you know, she always looks so sweet. And now she looks sweet and vulnerable and maybe more easily dismissed. She can't quite speak for herself as well as she used to. It doesn't mean this ain't working. Her brain is working. She just has trouble getting it out. But let her take pen to paper and work at it, and you get this. And if you would, allow me. Because if anyone has standing to speak, it is somebody whose life has been forever altered, and not for the better, by our gun fetish. Actually, the president took it was more than a swipe at anyone who said that the parents from Newtown were being exploited by the president, that they were being used to wring emotion out of it. And the president went as close as he comes to looking like his head's going to explode when he responded to that. He said, who should have and has, in fact, more standing to be out front on these issues than these people who buried their children? Who should be out front? They know it came into their house. See, the problem with people like a Senator Portman in Ohio, he couldn't be for gay rights till it came into his house. I suppose he won't vote the right way on gun violence until someone in his house gets killed. They don't have standing. They're being used as props. Here's Gabby Giffords. Senators say they fear the NRA and the gun lobby. But I think that fear must be nothing compared to the fear the first graders in Sandy Hook Elementary School felt as their lives ended in a hail of bullets. The fear that those children who survived the massacre must feel every time they remember their teachers stacking them into closets and bathrooms, whispering that they loved them so that love would be the last thing the students heard if the gunman found them. A minority of senators gave in to fear and blocked common sense legislation that would have made it harder for criminals and people with dangerous mental illnesses to get hold of deadly firearms. Some of the senators who voted against the background check amendments have met with the grieving parents whose children were murdered. Some of the senators who voted no have looked into my eyes as I talked about my experience being shot in the head at point-blank range in suburban Tucson 2 years ago, and expressed sympathy, they did, for the 18 other people shot, 6 of whom died. These senators have heard from their constituents, who polls show overwhelmingly favored expanding background checks, and still these senators decided to do nothing. Shame on them. I watch TV and read the papers like everyone else. We know what we're going to hear. Platitudes like tough vote and complicated issue. I was elected 6 times to represent Southern Arizona in the state legislature and then in Congress. I know what a complicated issue is. I know what it feels like to take a tough vote. This was neither. These senators made their decision based on political fear and on cold calculations about the money of special interests like the NRA, which in the last election cycle spent around $25 million. Speaking is physically difficult for me now, but my feelings are clear. I am furious. I will not rest until we have righted the wrong these senators have done, and until we have changed our laws so we can look parents in the face and say, we are trying to keep your children safe. We cannot allow the status quo, desperately protected by the gun lobby so that they can make more money by spreading fear and misinformation. I am asking every reasonable American to help me tell the truth about the cowardice these senators demonstrated. I am asking for mothers to stop these lawmakers at the grocery store and tell them, you have lost my vote. I am asking activists to unsubscribe from these senators' email lists and to stop giving them money. I'm asking citizens to go to their offices and say, you have disappointed me and there will be consequences. People have told me that I'm courageous, but I've seen courage. Gabe Zimmerman, my friend and staff member, saw me shot in the head and saw the shooter turn his gunfire on others. Gabe ran toward me as I lay bleeding toward gunfire, and then the gunman shot him, and then Gabe died, his body lying on the pavement in front of the Safeway for hours. I have thought a lot about why Gabe ran toward me when he could have run away. Service was part of his life, but it was also his job. The senators who voted against background checks for online and gun show sales, and those who voted against checks to screen out would-be gun buyers with mental illness, failed to do their job. They looked at these most benign and practical of solutions offered by moderates, and then they looked over their shoulder at the powerful, shadowy gun lobby and brought shame on themselves and our government, choosing instead to do nothing. They will try to hide their decision behind grand talk, behind willfully false accounts of what the bill might have done. Trust me. I know how politicians talk when they want to distract you. But their decision was based on a misplaced sense of self-interest. I say misplaced because to preserve their dignity and their legacy, they should have heeded the voices of their constituents. They should have honored the legacy of the thousands of victims of gun violence and their families who have begged for action. Not because it would bring their loved ones back, but so that others might be spared their agony. This defeat is only the latest chapter of what I have always known would be a long, hard haul. Our democracy's history is littered with names we neither remember nor celebrate. People who stood in the way of progress while protecting the powerful. On Wednesday, a number of senators voted to join that list. Mark my words. If we cannot make our community safer with the Congress we have now, we will use every means available to make sure we have a different Congress. One that puts communities' interests ahead of the gun lobby. To do nothing while others are in danger is simply not, the American way. I have a feeling that resolve you hear, and the resolve I heard in the president, and the resolve I've heard from the people who were part of this effort, truly is not going anywhere. And that 90% of Americans now has a much clearer picture of how their civics books lied to them about representation in government. Chuck writes, on the heels of the defeat of the background clearance bill this morning, you have John McCain standing there on Chuck Todd's show smiling and proclaiming bipartisanship and, oh God, and renewed cooperation on the immigration bill. I'm sorry, but it's very hard for me to be happy for the Gang of Eight when the background clearance bill was just mugged by this gang of Republicans. That handful of Democrats that voted against it should be ashamed. I am simply disgusted. You're hardly alone. But we got to organize and push back. There has got to be a homegrown American people standing against the NRA. The time has come. And I, for one now, will put this at the top of my list of priorities. I've had it. I gave up years ago. I said, we lost this battle, blah, blah, blah. They won, to hell with it. That was not the right decision. It, too, was a calculated political decision. We surrender at our own peril. Okay, we'll take a break and return.
Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com or call Lynn at 412-316-3381. Lynn Cullen Live will return in a moment.
War changed you. In 1941, as Poland was being invaded by other sovereign forces, one village in Poland was the site of unspeakable horror. As Russian and German forces pressed in, almost all of the Jews in the village were tortured and killed. For decades, the crime was blamed on the Nazis. More recent evidence suggests the villagers themselves may have committed the atrocity. PICT presents Our Class by Tadeusz Słobojenik in an English version by Ryan Craig. Our Class is an unforgettable theater experience. Through May 4th, visit picttheater.org for tickets. That's picttheater.org. PICT performs at the Stephen Foster Memorial at the University of Pittsburgh.
Go to barkbargains.com for great deals on gift cards from your favorite local restaurants, bars, museums, and shows. This week only, get discounts up to 20% for Red Lobster and Marshall's gift cards. Supplies are limited. barkbargains.com, Pittsburgh's best bargains. barkbargains.com.
Have a question or an opinion? Call Lynn Cullen at 412-316-3381 or email lynn at pghcitypaper.com. Now, more with Lynn Cullen Live.
Okie doke, Rich writes, on so many other issues, the country is often split, that's for sure, and sometimes undecided. But on this issue, yeah, it is true. On this issue, that wasn't the case. 90% supported this. Rich says even the majority of NRA members supported it. Is that true? That I hadn't seen. This is a lesson for us, Rich says, not just a lesson about the gun lobby, but a lesson about lobbying in general. On this issue, if we didn't know for sure, we now know that no matter how strongly America may feel about an issue, no matter how united the citizens may be behind an issue, a lobbyist will always take priority over a voter. So put the signs up in our yards, America, for sale. Okay, so it turns out the guy who allegedly sent the ricin is an Elvis impersonator. Oh, thank God for some comic relief. God bless you. Ew, ricin sender. Yeah, he's an Elvis impersonator. I've seen his picture. He, looks like an Elvis impersonator. It's not even sure he managed to do the ricin. Ricin, I guess, does false positives all the time, so it's going through some more strenuous testing, and then we'll see if Elvis managed to actually do the ricin. But, oh, for God's sake. Okay, so that we can push aside. This is the kind of thing that the nuts come out of the woodwork. You know, if there's a terrorist attack, and after 9/11 there was the anthrax stuff, which turned out to be real, and other things, copycatish stuff. I've been thinking, that I've been meaning to tell my son, who will be out of college in a few years and ready to have a job, this about working in this new forensics kind of area, where you comb through evidence. I just think that's a fascinating thing to do for a certain kind of person. I don't know that he is, but since he often sits looking at video all day, I thought he'd be really good at looking at video and picking things out. Hello?
Yeah, Clarence from Canonsburg.
Clarence, hi.
Hi. Fat Elvis or skinny Elvis, by the way?
What?
The Elvis impersonator, was he Fat Elvis or skinny Elvis?
No, he's skinny Elvis, I think. That's at least the picture I saw.
I didn't see anything on it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to call about the two things, and I've been arguing about this on Facebook with people about the whole gun issue. But I think at base are two things: gerrymandering and filibustering rules.
Yeah. Filibustering rules, big part of this.
Yeah.
That and Reed took Reed had the ability, my understanding was, at the beginning of this session of changing that, and he didn't.
Yeah, and that's one thing I had put on. I said, this is Reed's fault.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No.
Yeah, those filibustering rules, you should have to stand up and filibuster.
That's right.
And the gerrymandering, the way districts are drawn,
outrageous.
People don't have to think. Politicians don't have to think. All they have to do is poll. That's it. Whatever, they're districts, and their seats are safe. They don't have to compromise nothing.
No.
If they would draw decent districts where, differences of opinions are within the district, so they could just basically do what's right, or what the district thinks. But
I don't know how some of these districts pass constitutional scrutiny. I mean, I have seen pictures of districts that where you just draw the district, and it is so absurd. There is no way that should be a district. Snaking around over here, then narrowing, and then bulging out, and then snaking over here. That's not a district.
Yeah, part of the district is like a road.
Yeah.
So it can get to the other part of the district.
That's right.
But to me, that's one of the biggest problems.
Yeah.
If they would have a computer do the districts, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Just have a computer do it. not so that it puts because I know some of the gerrymandering was done back in the day, so that the minorities could have representation. Believe it or not, I actually think we're at the point where arguments make, just you could basically have politicians to make arguments. If you have, the city of Pittsburgh in a district that's the same as Upper St. Clair, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
For a congressman, they're going to have to do some serious politicking.
That's right. Yeah. Give them a slice of reality as opposed to these. I don't know what we're going to do about it, though, because I don't know what we're going to do. They have, the way our system works is the legislatures have the ability to do this, and the Republicans always use every tool they're given. Mm-hmm. And most legislatures have been Republican-controlled, and they've gone to town. And look what's happening in Harrisburg. I mean, they're talking about they always want to change the rules so that they can win.
Yeah.
And that has now they're looking at how we apportion our electoral votes. Mm-hmm.
To me, those two, the filibustering rules and redistricting. I remember in 2004 talking. That's when Tom ran, talking. To Democrats, you guys better start focusing on 2010.
Yeah.
Making sure you control the legislator when redistricting comes. And, that's not sexy. It's not pretty.
No, people don't get it. People
Too
just
wonky.
don't get it. Right, it's wonky.
And so nobody's paying attention to it. But to me, that's the issue.
Yeah. Well, you're right.
Oh, thank you.
I am not arguing. You are so right. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, Clarence. Bye. Bye. All right, so another one of these police blotter issues we can sort of put a check after, I guess, is the arrest of this man and wife in Texas for killing, with their guns, of course, the DA and his wife and the assistant DA because the guy who killed him was convicted of something and he was mad. I remember I heard how the poor DA and his wife, after the assistant DA got killed, they got scared, and understandably, and they armed themselves to the teeth and were living sort of, like this. Would never have gone to the door and opened it without knowing who was there. A lot of good at all those guns did them, huh? They're killed. They got killed. I have it's a stupid question, but I want to ask it. You've probably been seeing the mugshot of the husband for a few days now because he was taken into custody. I don't think he was charged with the murder. He was taken into custody, and it looked like he was wearing a white towel around his neck. And I'm assuming this is a mugshot, but he's got like this towel around his neck. And I thought, what's he wearing? That is so odd. Did he have a neck brace on? Because it looks real thick. Now we have the picture of his lovely wife. And she looks very unhappy, as well she should. And she, too, has this towel-like thing around her neck. I'm just asking. I've never seen mugshots that look like this. What's up with Texas? They put... You can't quite see it here, but it definitely looks like a terry cloth kind of... And they have towels-like things. I'm sorry, I'm not doing that very well. What is that? I need an answer. Little things bother me like that. I won't sleep tonight if somebody doesn't tell me what's with that around them. I'm used to good old-fashioned mugshots. That towel looks so bizarre. Still on the political front a little bit, and I'm steering clear of Boston for a while. Mark Sanford, hiking the Appalachian Trail. He won the Republican primary to get back into Congress. He'll be running against Colbert's sister. Sure to be attracting a lot of interest on election night since it's such a interesting narrative. He's now been accused of trespass by going to his wife's home when she wasn't there, despite the fact that he signed an agreement saying he never would. This was the last straw, I guess, for the Republicans who were holding their nose and supporting him. That'd be the Republican committee, a congressional committee that tries to get Republicans elected, and they now have said they will not support him with any money, nothing, because it's bad enough he's an adulterer. It's bad enough his gorgeous fiancée is on the campaign trail with him, reminding everybody all the time how he disappeared from his office as governor, didn't even tell his staff where he was. We were all told he was hiking when, in fact, he was in Argentina, messing around. And now we got trespassing. Great. So that's Mark Sanford. By the way, it's an overwhelmingly Republican district. If Sanford doesn't win, it'll be pretty amazing that Colbert's sister gets elected. It is a special election, so it could be that they'll be able to retake the seat when a regular election for it is held, that district. Just a little sidebar. So on my way to work today, I got off the bus. I'm walking toward this building. And I see this, like, scrum of black-suited men coming toward me. And they're walking very... It looked almost like, I don't know. Like a Monty Python sketch. It was like... Some of them were on the phone. They looked like... I don't know, men in black. That's what it was. Just a bunch of them. There were about 6, 7, 8 of them. And then when the scrum passed me, I saw there was one woman amidst them. And I couldn't help but note, as the scrum got closer, I sort of zeroed in on individuals rather than the scrum. And lo and behold, at the head, as he should have been, because he is the head of the scrum, was County Executive Rich Fitzgerald. And he was on his phone, and there were all these... The entourage was behind him. Who knows where they were coming from? They'd obviously just been to a meeting or something, and they were hoofing it back to their office. I like the fact they looked all business. They were very hard at work. But I didn't say hi because he was so... And he hadn't seen me, so I just sort of... And he said... on his phone as he passed me. So I just wanted to know what I say about that. That's what I heard. I was right in front of Wiener World when I heard that. I just want to know what I say about that. And I thought, oh, man, that's interesting. Because, he's the guy. He's the top guy. And I wondered who was on the other end. It could be anybody. It could be somebody who has information and he knows he's going to be asked a question. And he said, so what are we saying? Whatever. But I just thought it was interesting. Who is he asking? Was it his wife telling him what to say at the parent-teacher conference? I don't know. I just want to know what to say about that. I would never say such a thing. It's against my religion to have anybody put words in my mouth. And sometimes, believe me, it'd be a good idea if somebody did. It would save me a lot of trouble and red-faced apologies and that. Speaking of red-faced apologies, boy, did I make a big mistake yesterday. I'm driving in my car, and I have satellite radio. So I tuned in to CNN to see what was happening in the world of news. And oh my God, they were talking so excitedly. And I thought, what? As I came in the middle, and it was quite clear they were saying that an arrest had been made. Or they got a guy. They know who it is. They have identified the blah, blah, blah. I thought, wow, that's unbelievable. And then they were talking about, oh, this is incredible, how quickly, well, this and that, and yada, yada. And there was speculation left and right, and they're talking about blah, 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 blah. I get out of my car, run an errand, get back in my car, and all of a sudden they're saying things like, well, you can see they're starting to... They're walking it back. They're walking back a little without saying, we totally lied to you. We totally misinformed you. We are, of course, CNN, and we do that on big stories all the time. That's what we're about. How could CNN, of all... They've had egg on their face in so many situations where they get it wrong, really wrong. And what's the other cable station that always follows them? I mean, they get it wrong too. Fox. That is correct. Fox was apparently also reporting there'd been an arrest, all this stuff. Never mind that there hadn't been an arrest. Never mind that there had been no ID. These guys are citing sources. CNN, Fox, and the Associated Press, which is really surprising. Yeah, I have to say I'm a little stunned by that. The AP generally tends to try to be very conservative. For your later, choices you may make as to which network to watch, You should know that MSNBC continued to say there has been no arrest. There has been no arrest. We have no such blah, blah, blah. And also CBS also continued and insisted, as did the New York Times, even though there was this fear that they had gotten beaten on this story and everyone else knew there was an arrest, they stuck to their guns because they could not in any real way confirm it. You'll recall that CNN and Fox also misreported the Supreme Court decision on Obamacare. I know there was another one for CNN. It's unbelievable. It's one thing for Twitter and, all that to spread false information, and I'm sure that was all over Twitter too. But this is something. I mean, the FBI had to come out and say, hey, cut it out. There's been no arrest. In fact, you're potentially harming our investigation. But there you had John King at CNN saying, I was told by one of these sources, who is a law enforcement official, that this was a dark-skinned male. The Boston Globe, Boston TV stations also went off the rails on this. I guess this will just keep happening because for some reason now, fact is trumped by speed. You want to be first. Never understood that. I've never understood that. NPR announced that Gabby Giffords was dead. Tell that to Gabby Giffords. I think I just read her piece in the New York Times. This idea of being first is such a bunch of nonsense. And I recall when I was in television news and I would sometimes poke my head into the news director's office while the brain trust, the news director, the assistant news director, the producers, are watching the 6 o'clock news go on. They're watching their product, but they're not just watching their product. They've got, 4 or 5 monitors up. They're watching TAE, they're watching KD, they're watching PXI, they're watching the competition. And I remember when they would freak out because one of the other stations had a story like a minute before our story. And they beat us then. And I'm thinking, how could they beat us when no one at home is watching all 3 and scoring who told them something first? Our audience would hear the same report, and if they got it a minute later, what difference does it make? And I always rack this kind of thing up to men. I do. I'm looking at, believe me, it was all men. And men created the field of journalism by and large and how we think of it and do it. And that kind of competitive nonsense, where it is nonsense, I believe competition when you're trying to be the best is a good idea. But how best equates to first, I ain't so sure. Bragging rights for me is best, which would mean quality, which would mean facts, which would mean presenting something that is in fact true. And that sometimes takes a little more time to check out. So, pretty good headline on all this, USA Today. Black and white and red-faced all over. Everybody knows that, right? The old joke. Mm-hmm. What's black and white and red all over? paper. So black and white and red-faced all over. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I could never be a headline writer. I'm not good at that kind of thing. Oh, look, I'm getting a something from the Fitzgerald. But this is just, it's a release. But maybe, I bet this is where they were. Let's see. Allegheny County Executive Rich Fitzgerald today commended the work of the county's 130 municipalities. Let me just talk about the fact that the county has 130 municipalities. That is stupid! And other governmental organizations in honor of Local Government Week. God, jeez. Is that where the scrum was coming from? A celebration of Local Government Week? There's too much local government in this area. We got such redundancy of services. If you drive down Ohio River Boulevard, you are in a different town every 6 seconds. It is beyond belief. Well, that's me. I'm speeding always. But if you're going the speed limit, all of a sudden, there you are in, I can't even name them all. You're in Ben Ave. Then, oops, no, I'm in Amsterdam. Oops, I'm in Kilbuck. Oops, I'm in this. Oops, I'm in this. There are literally a million, I exaggerate only slightly, towns, different governmental entities. And I swear to God, some of them can't be any bigger than, I don't know, probably Lindsay Lohan's rap sheet. It's just stupid. Stupid. Unbelievably stupid. It just allows a lot of people to walk around with their chests out saying, well, I'm the mayor. Well, I'm the constable. Yes, I'm the fire chief. Drives me crazy. So the scrum must have been coming from this celebration of stupidity. There. I think I'll take a break.
More is on the way with Lynn Cullen Live.
This week's Pittsburgh City Paper is available now. Pick up one today for our inaugural travel guide magazine. Plus, anything goes. Butch, and a look at how green is the burg compared to other cities. Pittsburgh City Paper available at over 1,700 locations throughout Western Pennsylvania and on the web at pghcitypaper.com and on your smartphone at citypapermobile.com.
It's warming up outside, so get to Little's for all your spring needs. Little's has everything for men, women, and children to stay in style for this upcoming hot summer. Lots of great colors from Dansko, New Balance, Steve Madden, and much, much more. Don't forget to come visit this season's colorful handbag selection as well. Little Shoes, Pittsburgh's largest family shoe store, 5850 Forbes Avenue in Squirrel Hill.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
Okay. Sometimes I read the business section of the papers. It usually boils my blood. But you may have... Did any of you notice... Now, I know one of... I'm sorry, one of Jess's pet peeves, am I correct? Is if I were to say, did you ever shop at Penny's?
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Right, instead of saying JCPenny.
No! Instead of saying penny. There's no pen. You're the one who doesn't like an S put on when there really is no S. It's JCPenny.
Oh, yeah.
And you say, when people say...
But that's different.
Okay, all right. So she says that's different. Okay, so JCPenny. Now, that was an iconic store for so long.
Right.
It ain't anymore. Perhaps...
Revamping it.
They're revamping it, says, Jess. Well, let me tell you about the revamp. We've noticed. All of a sudden, JCPenny disappears. Did you notice that? And instead, there's something called JCP. And I thought, the brains come in, the consultants, the focus groups, and they must have said, JCPenny is like, horse and buggy, or we gotta make this, cooler, hipper. So gone is JCPenney, and all of a sudden is JCP, and they have a whole different thing about how they don't do sales. Do you remember that one? We don't do sales. We always, this and that. And I remember thinking, uh-oh, something's really wrong here. They're struggling. They're clearly panicking. Something's going on. So I did start sort of out of curiosity looking into JCPenney a little bit. And the latest news on JCPenney, by the way, is they have they've thrown overboard the guy who came in to rescue them, who did all that. The guy who came in and said, JCPenney is, and let's go to JCP, and here's what we're going to do. And that's from a consumer point of view that I was talking about. What he also did, and by the way, this guy was an Apple executive. Name was Ron Johnson. So they thought, oh, Apple, this guy knows how to do this. He's very au courant as opposed to JCPenney with, button-up shoes and stuff. So he comes in, he makes it, hey, man, JCP, and we don't do sales, and we're hip. And also what he did that is very, very much what kind of thing we do today, he absolutely decimated the sales force. So, JCPenney employed about 150,000 people before Mr. Apple came in to fix it. He cut its force to 116. That is a huge hunk of people cut. And it is said that he would people would be called into a meeting, maybe as many as 100 people. And they'd fire them all, just like that. You're gone, out. So, 1 year into this guy, the brilliant one, the savior's tenure, JCPenney's profits had plunged. Consumer satisfaction with the company plunged. Employee satisfaction, well, those few who were left, they weren't feeling too good either, as you can imagine. And finally, the geniuses who run JCPenney got rid of their savior. Now, there was a column written by a Washington Post business columnist, Harold Meyerson, who said, this is just one more story of what has gone on in this country in the last 15, 20 years? This sense that corporate America got, that you could never be slim enough. I lived through it. I guess anybody listening lived through it. Lots of us lost our jobs. Lots of us saw people lose their jobs. Lots of us saw these hatchet men and bean counters come into our industries and our businesses and totally destroy the joy we took in our jobs and made it into a cutthroat, scary environment. We all know this. We lived through it. Did I say 15, 20 years? It's more like 25, 30 years. This was the new mantra. You get the highest profits with the fewest number of people, and that's what good business is. Now, Harold Meyerson points out that exactly when this new wisdom came into the American corporate sphere, America began changing totally into a service economy. Well, stop and think about that. What does service mean to you? Service, I think, tends to be sort of labor intensive. You don't have any employees. I don't think customer satisfaction is going to be very good. And it ain't. So Meyerson points out, so you got JCPenney going down. You got Walmart, whose idea of how you do business has pretty much destroyed the American middle class. Get this. In the last 5 years, you know how many stores Walmart has added to its gazillions? Walmart has built 455 new stores. 455 in the last 5 years. It's like 90 stores a year going up. And guess what? In that same period, they've reduced their number of employees. Now, how do you do that? How do you have 495 new stores and yet you've reduced your overall level of employees? Have you noticed, because I have, because if every once in a while you dare to look at the business page, that Walmart now is at the top of every poll taken of customer dissatisfaction? Business Week reports that pallets of merchandise are piling up in Walmart stockrooms as shelves go unfilled and overworked employees cannot find the time to restock the products. So you've got, Walmart, which used to be looked at as this is the way you run a business. I mean, these guys got it down. No, they don't. Their greed has now squeezed. You can always get thinner. That's what they're always thinking. We can squeeze this a little more. We can squeeze this a little more. And they've squeezed a little more and a little more and a little more. And now there's not even anything on their shelves. It takes people, jobs. And then Meyerson points out the few retailers who have not gone this way, who have said, I don't think that is a good way to run a business. I think you hire people and you give them good wages, living wages, and good benefits, and they will work very hard for you, and then you will get customer satisfaction and yada, yada. You know who that is? Costco. You know who that is? Trader Joe's. And he points out that both Costco and Trader Joe's are two of the most successful retailers right now. They pay their employees far more than their competitors. Now, see, the Republican way of thinking, capitalist way of thinking, the corporate way of thinking is you pay them as little as you possibly can, and you squeeze them, and you work them to death. Costco doesn't do that. Trader Joe's doesn't do that. In fact, they even offer their employees opportunities really to move up. They have incredibly low turnover. They have far higher sales per employee. Even though there's more employees in a Costco than in a Sam's Club, the Costco employees individually sell more than it seemingly wouldn't make sense. Well, how will they do that? There's more of them, and yet they sell more than, we only got 3 over here, and these 6 sell more. How could that be? Well, unfortunately, Meyerson concludes with a sort of depressing sense that, of course, corporate America never likes to figure it was mistaken or it was wrong. It tends to double down. The Walmart model is the one that still is uppermost. It, in fact, has, through that model, it has depressed the wages of American workers so that millions of Americans really have no choice but to shop at Walmart. It's a vicious circle. They impoverish people, and in impoverishing them, create their own consumers, people who can't afford to buy anywhere else. Meyerson says this: the U.S. economy that Walmart has built, with plenty of help from Wall Street and our government, is in the shape of a downward spiral, and it will take all our ingenuity and a mass movement for worker power to free ourselves from this path. I don't know how you could argue. And it appears nobody is. So I didn't even talk about Boston, did I? Well, I did a little bit in terms of the news. Let's just let it play out. Let it play out. I was engaging in some speculation the other day I should not have. I have a feeling I said. Well, what do I know? What do any of us know? We don't know nothing. Oh, let's wait. And I didn't mention this horrific fire and explosion at the federal fertilizer plant in Texas. That's going to be a huge story today. And a lot of lives lost, apparently. I think when I started the show, I said, the news, oh, God. There's no good news. Well, the Elvis impersonator, I consider that almost good news. So, okay, guys, thank you so very much for spending any of this time with me. And I'll be back tomorrow. Let's do it again till we get it right.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.